I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thank you for being here. We're going to start with our consent agenda. There is a set of prior minutes and a number of policy readings. Any questions or discussion about those? None? Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda. We'll do that by roll. Erin?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Polly?
Aye.
And Mary is an aye. That brings us to our recognition of visitors and public comment. And I do see Jared and over there. You'd like to talk?
Yes.
Absolutely. Come on up. Welcome.
Here?
Yeah, that works. Whatever works for you.
Hi, Jared Valancourt from Berkshire. I had a recent conversation with someone in our community that motivated me to speak here tonight because they felt that they didn't have a voice out of the fear of consequences. Unfortunately, this was not the first time that I've had conversations like this. What I think a lot of parents, students, teachers, and staff want to know is, when did we lose the right to express views that are contrary to the ideology of the day? To question these beliefs without the fear of intimidation, bullying, being silenced, being called a racist and other names, or the fear of losing your job. That's just wrong. I also recently participated in the equity audit being conducted by the Insight Education Group, a group that said colorblindness is an equity detour, and that we have been raised in a society that was built on white supremacist beliefs. These are clearly biased statements. One of the questions they asked was, what do you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion in this district? My answer is, opportunity cost. Every hour spent, dollar invested, resource used to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion is time, money, and resources that are not being invested in basic education. As you know, Vermont just released the students' standardized test scores for 2022. The percentage of students who performed at or above their proficient level for math was 34% for fourth graders and 27% for eighth graders. For reading, it was 34% for both fourth and eighth graders. There are opportunity costs. Despite these scores, and after 2 years of disrupted learning, schools became invested in and distracted by diversity, equity, and inclusion, social justice causes and activism, anti-racism and implicit bias trainings, a fixation on identity and oppression, compelled speech over the use of pronouns, race and gender theories and issues, the promotion of groups that focus on student sexuality, and other controversial programs. There are opportunity costs to focusing on these issues. They include a continued decrease in math and reading scores, as recently announced, increases in behavioral concerns and confusion, continued staffing issues, and other detrimental effects. There's a saying, and I'm paraphrasing, just because someone has the right to do something is not at all the same as whether someone is right in doing it. There are always opportunity costs. A former superintendent said, what we have is a system that has lost focus on its fundamental purpose. If DEI and other ideologies continue to be a primary focus, demanding excessive time and resources, our test scores will continue to decline, mental health and behavioral issues will continue to rise, and our students will have difficulty coping in society after graduation. Our teachers and children deserve an education system that is steeped in math and literacy. The best way to achieve equity is to ensure that they are proficient in both. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Anyone else? I'm not sure. You all are just here as part of the instructional team? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to our spotlight of the evening, Michelle.
Courtney, are you going to be able to share? Thank you. So I was asked to come and talk about the youth adult partnerships that we have started in our district this year, mostly because I'm helping to kind of coordinate this work, and it is directly tied to the board goals, particularly around the proficiency-based learning and all students, the way we have framed all of our goals as all students being able to achieve the standards and the goals that we've established. So you can flip to the next one, Court. So, why Youth Adult Partnership? We are working with a group called Up for Learning to help us with some of this work. They're a statewide organization. They do work nationally with youth and adults, and they really believe that when youth work closely with adults toward these shared goals, they gain skills and confidence for lifelong learning and civic engagement. That is the essence of the work we're doing. And when adults work closely with youth as partners, the opportunity to learn from students' insights, unique perspectives, often renews a professional sense of purpose and shifts teaching toward more student-centered practice, which is really the crux of proficiency-based learning. So they believe that partnership creates ownership, that ownership really sparks motivation in students and adults, and that motivation drives learning for all of us. So I have this slide. There's two sides to this. We had I think I presented to you at some point in the last couple of months. We started a kickoff retreat, planning retreat in June with a number of youth and adults that was here this summer. I have a quick video I'm going to share with just some reflections from what that was all about. Go ahead and start that, Courtney. Did it work?
Oh, hold on, sorry.
Oh, that's queuing up. I can give you a little synopsis. So the goal of that retreat was really to think about, here we go. All right, we'll let them talk. Poor Anna. That's quite the face.
Why do you think lifting up student voice in FNESU is important?
It's really important to have student voice because school, the whole reason we have school is for like students to learn, and that means they need to like make the big decisions about them, and it's really important to get their input on things that are done for them.
A few years ago, a group of students got together and did a lot of research and work around the portrait of a graduate and what a learner should gain getting through high school. And one of the things that was shared from that group of students was that they really thought that independent decision-making was a pretty important skill, that they weren't really being offered opportunities to do in high school, and then they were sort of going out into the world and having to make these big decisions. And that really stood out to me, that our high school experience isn't really reflecting some of what we want students going out into the world with. It doesn't really mirror that. And I think students, they know what world they're living in, and they should really have a part. In some cases, they know more than we do. They can imagine more than we can what it will look like for them in the future. And so their voice is really important.
A good friend of mine who has a motto, and she says, nothing about me without me. And I think that's really what this is about. That's remembering that students are the center of our work and really need to be involved in those conversations and those decisions.
I really enjoyed when we all sat down in a circle and we were like working on the stuff on the board. What was it called?
The projector?
Yeah, the projector. Mm-hmm. And we all were saying like I was saying before, like our own perspective of like what's going on. And we were kind of like popcorning. Like you didn't have to raise our hands and call on us because sometimes like people don't call on me when I raise my hand.
I think Anna and Maisie really helped me feel comfortable there during the beginning, and I think that's when I was able to really be myself there.
I really enjoyed just being able to work with students and hear student perspectives and not just be working with adult colleagues, but hear a different perspective.
I know I really liked how I got to meet some other youth students, and really, feel that I wasn't the only one that wanted to make a change in my school. And like just building connections with those kids and students, that was really important to me, and I really enjoyed that.
I really enjoyed also hearing the perspectives of the students and kind of experiencing firsthand what a font of wisdom that these youth bring with to these experiences and these what it's like when they're really engaged in the planning from the ground up, and that to me was really powerful, and I was really impressed, and I have to say, even in the subsequent week when Bonnie joined our advisory group, the adults interacted in very different ways than we would have if Bonnie wasn't there, and I think it really brought out the best in all of us to have her there. So it's just a sample of some of the people that attended the June retreat, and the work that we really did there was to sort of talk a little bit about what some of our goals were. What does youth adult partnership look like, and how do we want to move forward this year? So we had a second retreat in October. A different group of students came than that came in the summer. I don't think they were any of the same kids were there at the same time. We had students from Richford High School, Enosburg Middle School, Montgomery, and I think one student from Berkshire who actually was sick and couldn't make it, and then a number of adults from around the district as well. And they really sorted themselves into 3 different sort of working groups that will be moving forward this year. One was around creating a welcoming and equitable community, really trying to recognize the different voices in our community. One was really looking at creating true youth-adult collaboration. I think, as Gab said in the video, that there was not a lot of opportunity for a real true youth-adult collaboration, so they wanted to look at that. And then the final one was a group that really wants to look at uniting our community, so kind of recognizing the divide that has existed among the towns in our community and trying to bring them together as one. So I think that's really exciting work. Our next meeting will be in December, where we're going to kind of dig into some of those design elements and kind of articulate what those plans will look like for the rest of this year. And a couple other opportunities. You can go ahead, Courtney, and stand forward. 2 other opportunities that we're in the process of pulling together right now. I mentioned advisory on the video. We have a group this summer of professionals that came together, and one student from Sheldon Elementary who came together to talk about building a more equitable advisory system in Franklin Northeast. And so we're looking to kind of expand that team to have more students and staff participating on that to sort of set the direction for next year. The other opportunity is around our Portrait of a Learner, and that's the current graphic that we're going with. It's kind of recently shared out, but with all of the characteristics on it, we're having a group of both students, wide stakeholder group, to really look at implementation for that as well. And then 2 other opportunities I just want to share with you. One is we had a group of students from Richford High School who came and presented to our full faculty on interrupting hateful language, and that was a presentation they designed. They shared it with their faculty. They've shared it with a couple of other groups, so we invited them to leadership and then to share it with the entire faculty at in-service, and it was a really powerful conversation around what we can do as adults to ensure that we are stopping hateful language when it's happening and give them some opportunities to practice. It was a really powerful experience. So we're moving to follow that up at our leadership team meeting in January with another group of students who want to come and talk about supporting the LGBTQIA identities and how we can both understand and support those better. So that'll be coming up in January. I think that's the end. Yep.
Great. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Michelle. Excellent. So moving on, that brings us to Jody and her instructional coaching team for the spotlight.
Yes. Do you guys want to stand or stay seated? What do you want to do? Great. Well, we're going to talk about our new teacher support system and specifically the instructional coaching model that is new this year. And so yes, I do have the instructional coaches here with me and we're all going to kind of take turns. So I'm going to introduce them, but then they're also going to introduce themselves a little bit. We're going to talk about why we decided to invest in an instructional coaching model. We are also going to take a look at how it actually works, and then some feedback from the new teachers who are getting coaching. So that's the plan. All right, so we have Leslie Rainville, Amber Renadette, and Marty Valander, and I'm going to let Leslie take it away.
Hey there. So as Jody said, I'm Leslie Rainville. I've been employed in FNESU for 16 years, non-consecutively. And within that, I had the pleasure of teaching at Richford High School for many years. I just saw a former student at dinner tonight and is expecting a child and has a great job, and it made me really happy. That's why I taught English for so long, because I love my high school kiddos. In addition to that, I was part of the leadership team at Richford High School. When I moved into Sheldon Elementary School, I became the literacy coach and was so there for 4 years. I also served as interventionist for literacy work, K to 8, and literally did everything else in between. So I'm really excited about being a district coach because it allows me to focus energy in one area instead of all of the many hats that one would take on in a school setting. I think it's working well. I think we're making a real difference for teachers, and I believe that you'll be able to see some evidence of that in a little while. And also, I believe that we're improving student learning as well. And my husband and I have been Sheldon residents for 12 years. I've got 2 little kids, or not so little kids anymore, at Sheldon Elementary, so I just want to make sure that their experience is the very best that it can be. And by being an instructional coach, I think we're getting there.
Hi, I'm Amber Renadette, and I have been teaching, this is my 21st year, is that right, Robin? You and I are on the same page.
I think
for
you're
that.
a year ahead of me.
Okay. And so I started actually in this district. I began my career in Richford, and then I had 2 years in Berkshire. And then the bulk of my career has been in Highgate Elementary. I worked there for 12 years. I taught 3rd and 4th grade there. I was a math and literacy interventionist there. And then most recently, I came back to the district and worked in Enosburg for the past 3 years at the elementary school as the math coach. And so I've been a teacher, a mentor, and that's how I got a little taste of this. And I was very excited to be able to have this opportunity. Right now, I'm working in 5 out of our 6 elementary schools because Berkshire has their own coach there all the time. And it's really cool to be able to see things from a bird's eye view and be able to use my experience to help teachers in K through 6th grade. So, and my husband and I live right in Enosburg, and our 3 kids come to the high school here and 2 in the elementary school.
And my name is Marty Valander. I was teaching elsewhere in Vermont, but have been teaching at FNESU for the last 9 years. I think this is my 10th year. I work mostly with high school teachers, so I'm at both Richford High School and Enosburg High School, and then a couple middle school and elementary school teachers at 2 of our other schools. Before this, I was teaching middle school in Richford and was part of the leadership team there. This job, I really enjoy kind of working in a lot of different places. It really spreads me so I can see what's going on and hopefully kind of align all of our visions together. I really enjoy that part.
All right, so if you remember last year, we made a commitment to investing in instructional coaching, and we actually wrote a strategy in our American Rescue Plan funds to fund it initially. And it is a teacher retention strategy, so there's definitely an aspect of that. The research tells us that there's a large percentage of teachers that do actually leave the profession within the first 5 years, but it also is an academic proficiency investment. And here's some great research from the Rand Corporation about the power of effective teachers. So this is some data that Jamie shared with us last month. When we started working on the slideshow, I didn't have the most recent. But you can see that those numbers are large. And this is the beginning of my 12th year working at central office. And these are for sure the largest numbers I've ever seen. I don't know if they're the biggest ones we've ever had, but they are the largest ones in the last 12 years, for sure. Of this 59 new teachers, of course, some of them are experienced and they're just new to FNESU. But some are beginning teachers, and there really is a pressing need to support beginning teachers. Do you want to take this one, or did you want me to take this one?
I'd be happy to. I think what's really excellent about what we're doing and what we're practicing is, we can support our teachers emotionally with their curriculum and with like their pedagogical approach. And so the purpose of instructional coaching is really to accelerate learning for all students. We're focused on student learning when we're in the rooms by supporting and building the teachers themselves. We're working on effective instructional practices, facilitating school reform, improving teacher effectiveness, and using a lot of different strategies to accomplish that.
So this actually was from a document from the Agency of Education, the quote that was up there before.
So these are some of the things that we do with the teachers in the district. We, in some capacities, we're not just working with newer teachers, we're also doing things through the whole district, like helping to provide and plan in-service and other professional learning. We help teachers with their PLCs. Some of us have attend staff meetings and help with that. We're always looking at teachers' instructional practice and giving them feedback on that. We're helping them to assess and look at the data that they have and analyze it, and some of them how to teach it because they've never done it before. So we're modeling how to give those assessments. And then we do a lot of co-planning and modeling and co-teaching and observing and giving feedback. And there's actually a menu, if you could, is Courtney doing this? Yeah. If you could just click on the link right there. It should open up a coaching menu that we give our teachers. So this kind of just shows you that we do the deeper coaching cycle with them where the teachers will identify an area of growth that they want to improve in. And so we continually get data and feedback and give them that, and then they go in that deeper coaching cycle. But there's also a lot of other types of coaching that we do, like gathering resources with them and helping them to reflect on their own teaching, having emotional support for them, collaborating, going to sub in their classroom so that they can observe somebody else in a different school or on a different grade level, or even within their own school. So those are some of the things that we offer them, and I do have hard copies if anyone wants to have them to take.
So I will talk a little bit about some of the things that Amber and Marty have just mentioned. So there's sort of two pieces to our style of coaching. The first one would be to have ongoing contact with teachers. We each have 14 or 15 folks that we work with directly. As Amber said, she works primarily in the K-6. Marty works primarily in the middle high with, a little side dish of elementary school. I've got everywhere between first grade and, oh my gosh, kindergarten, where's my brain? Kindergarten through 12th grade, so I work with a little bit of everybody. But within that, right, we meet with those people just about once a week and have some sort of a standing connection, whether it be a meeting during the school day, during their prep time, or an after-school piece, or a phone call. I had one today. Or emails, or however, Zooms, however it is that we connect, so that we can answer those questions that are immediate and pressing. We can be able to discuss some of the things that we've seen when we've been in those classrooms and observing. We make it a point to continually discuss and plan instruction, to work out problems of practice, be that sounding board as first year teachers absolutely need. We try really hard to consistently give encouraging feedback, right? Because it always feels good when someone sees that you did that one thing right. And then just build rapport and trust with those folks so that if something does come to pass where they need to have a chat with you, our work is confidential, and we can have those talks and we can figure out and how to solve those problems of practice. In regards to coaching cycles, I think the graphic on the left is pretty helpful. So what that means is when a teacher is ready, we have a conversation with them about something that they would like to improve for their own practice. So we work with teachers to help them set a goal, right? So a SMART goal, if you're familiar with that term, we use the term peers goals. But once we do that, we figure out, okay, so if you want to hit this goal, then let's do some learning and let's do some resource digging and let's find out some more about it. Then observation and data collection would happen. So once the teacher has done a little bit of learning on this idea, then we come in and do some observation and data collection to see how well it's going. And then there's a spot for reflection, right? Did it work? Did it not work? If it did work, yay, that's great. Let's go, let's make another goal and move forward. If it didn't work so well, let's think about the reasons why. And wait, let's try something else, right? Because that goal is something that they decided upon. It's important to them. It is going to improve their instruction, and that's what we want to see. We want to see improvement, and we want to see autonomy in our teachers.
So the coaching, of course, is a very important piece of supporting new teachers, but it is part of a systems of support that we have for our new teachers. So they do also have a building-based go-to person who helps them with building specific things like where's the copier paper and who's our sub-coordinator and all of that kind of stuff. This year we also did devote some of our money to enrolling all of our beginning teachers in a cohort that was offered for the first time this year. And it is with this author, Tina Bugren, who actually is a nationwide expert on new teachers and supporting new teachers. And so they all have a monthly 90-minute meeting with Tina virtually. And they did also all get a copy of that field guide. And there are some school-based coaches as well in the SU. So Berkshire has a full-time school-based instructional coach, and Montgomery has a part-time school-based instructional coach. So some of our teachers have that part of the system of support as well. And then, of course, we do have our 2-day new teacher orientation in August. So we had all of these except for the beginning teacher cohort and our instructional coaches in the past. But I think the addition of both of those things are a wonderful support for our new teachers this year.
So I can speak to this. So what we thought would be the most impactful way for you to see how our work is being seen, we collected a little bit of data from our new teachers and posed them some questions. We asked, if you were to describe your instructional coach, how might you describe them? We asked what is the most, important thing that you've been able to do, or what has been the most valuable thing that you've been able to do with your instructional coach, and then whether or not they felt that instructional coaches were a valuable resource. So this all was anonymous, because we were looking to get data that was real and honest, and here's what we found. So some folks saying that instructional coach is someone who observes teaching, offers helpful suggestions, troubleshoots problems, some real, speak to dealing with struggles as a first-year teacher. We are resource finders. We are pointers in the right direction, so to speak. I won't read them to you because you can do that, but I think that some of these things are pretty valuable. We can go to the next one. I really thought that these two pieces were pretty impactful. I know when we read them, we were like, really? Yay, that's exactly what we wanted. And then the graphic in the bottom corner, out of the responses that we collected, which were 14, recognizing that we sent it out to those 59, every single one of them thought that our position and having a coach was a valuable resource.
So what are your questions?
That's amazing.
I'm curious how often the coaches meet in the different buildings, and how that kind of is structured across the SU.
How they meet as a group?
How they meet,
or-
no, how they meet, like how many times a week, especially with the new teachers, is it once a week, is it once a month? How often are they able to access that instructional coaching, knowing that there are some buildings that have a dedicated coach in that particular school?
Yeah, so none of us go to Berkshire because they have their own school, their own written school. I do go to Montgomery, that's the part-time, other coach, and we work together. We both, do the staff meetings together there once a month. And then we meet with our new teachers every week, once a week. And sometimes, they know they can reach out to us anytime, whether it's Zoom or email. And then most of us are able to also get in and either observe or see them in their classroom as well once a week. That's our goal, is to meet with them once a week and get in to see them once a week.
Great.
Yeah, so I go to all 5, so I go to each school each day.
I'll speak to so there are many folks in Sheldon this year, and I stay usually at Sheldon about 2 days a week because I have so many folks that need support. I go to Bakersfield like Amber does. I come right up here. I have a teacher I work with at the high school and a teacher I work with at the elementary school. But based on, yes, it's weekly, and if they need something else or something more, then we try our best to be available for them.
Great.
And we've made it pretty open with them all, just because we go to a certain school on a certain day, if you need anything or you want us to see a certain lesson or activity, we've been flexible. Like today, I was just in Bridgeford, but then I went to Montgomery because the teacher wanted me to see a certain thing there. So we've all been pretty flexible about that as well.
Awesome.
We also all meet as a group, the 4 of us pretty frequently, but also we have once a month when our beginning teachers are in that virtual cohort meeting for 90 minutes. All of the SU coaches and Mary Ellis and myself meet monthly, just to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page, talking the same language, and then to allow the coaches to collaborate and problem solve together.
That's great. And this, you'll continue this moving forward, this level of, instructional coaching being available to our new teachers, regardless of how it might vacillate from year to year, how many newly minted teachers we have, right?
I think so, yeah. I don't anticipate our need decreasing, because
Right.
even when we have happier teachers who feel more confident, are more effective, and stay longer, we still have a need for continuous improvement.
Totally.
That never stops.
Yeah, certainly.
So, you know, even when we have fewer new beginning teachers, there still will be teachers who want to improve their practice.
Of course.
Or who need to improve their practice,
Yeah.
and so we'll have the coaches as an asset for that.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's invaluable. I appreciate it. Thank you so
Jody,
much.
I just had a question too.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm up here or wherever. Is there any, is there any demand for you guys to, like, do you have any of like the more seasoned veteran teachers reach out to you guys? Or do you find you're mainly working with like the newer teachers?
Kat, this is Leslie. I can answer that question in a little bit of a way. Although our focus are those new teachers, I've had former colleagues of mine, right, when I'm at the high school in Richford say, hey, if you have a free minute, which I know you don't have, right, because such is teaching, can you come in and give me some pointers on ... Or if you have a free minute, I would love to have your input, or, you know, any of that. So I think by us being available and around in buildings and we're being seen by others, there's some interest, right? We're piquing some interest in some seasoned teachers. And I will speak also to my experience as a coach in a building where coaching wasn't required. No one was knocking the door down to come find the coach. But now I think because our presence is known and folks are knowing kind of what we do now in a different way, and that coaching is really our true focus, I think you may see that shift to change.
Yeah, and the ultimate goal for us is to build capacity of all teachers. That's what we want. We're starting with our newer teachers, but anyone can be coached at any time in their profession and in their career. So hopefully, that's the model we'll strive to get to.
I also notice when I've crossed paths with these guys kind of in the wild, if they aren't working directly with the teachers, they're pretty smart about putting themselves physically in a place like the staff room where the teachers are walking through. And I actually have had a lot of teachers say to me, I got to talk to, you know, Marty about this the other day, and that was really helpful. Or Amber showed me how to do this, and I really appreciate it. So yes, there definitely has been an effect on the other teachers who aren't necessarily in formal coaching, having access to the three of these folks in their buildings.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so Morgan, that brings us to you with our business report.
All right, so you received your current year financial update by email a couple of weeks ago now, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions on that folks have. Otherwise, no storm clouds on the horizon as far as I can see. That's the advantage of having so many unfilled positions, is that you're not likely to overspend your budget.
True. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay.
And I will skip down and knock out the financial management questionnaire. This is something that I think I had sent out by email. Folks seen that?
Yes.
So this is a statutory requirement for all districts. It is basically a document that your administration prepares and presents to the board to take away any ability you have to say that you didn't know what was going on if things go south. So it's 2 pages of questions about basically who does what in the back office. The only thing that I would call attention to, and hopefully you all noted this, is there is a question around theft or embezzlement, and we did have some bogus checks submitted to the bank on the SU account. We caught them in our office and alerted that to the bank, and so there's been no financial loss to the district. And then we've implemented some additional security measures so that that can't happen again in the future.
So I don't have a questionnaire.
Okay.
And,
I can project it, or I can send it out by email, and I don't think there's a time limit on taking action, so
Okay.
if you wanna
Okay,
punt it a month, we can do that.
okay.
All right?
cause it wasn't in our meeting materials, correct? It was separate? Did you just send it today?
I did not just send it today.
Yeah,
I thought
that
it
was
went
the
out
budget.
earlier, but I can, send it or resend it.
Oh,
I think I have it.
this one on November
It says document for budget discussion.
Yeah, no, it's not
Second.
that one.
It's not that one?
No. The document for the budget discussion was budgeted FTEs.
Well, I'll get it out after this meeting, and we can take it up and send it.
Okay. Sounds fine.
And when you say overstretch, you mean a vendor? No. How did that work?
What I think happened was that somebody at a vendor that we use
Yeah.
took a picture of the check, printed a bunch of checks with our account number and our routing
Gotcha.
number, and gave them out to their friends, and then the friends deposited them.
And then they tried to clear our bank and we caught them.
So actually the bank cleared them, and we caught it, and we said, these are clearly bogus, they spelled the company name wrong. They did not have a signature that matched anything on our
Wow.
file, so it was kind of pretty clearly a shotgun approach that they thought they would get lucky on some of that and didn't.
So when was this?
When did this
happen?
It happened in May, June timeframe. And so there's a system that the banks use that we implemented called Positive Pay, which is now when we send out checks, we send a file to the bank and says, here are the checks we just mailed out. The vendor, the number, and the dollar amount, and so now they won't clear any unless they find it on that file. And it's a big hassle because it's all read electronically, and so we have a dozen to go through every day where the reader didn't quite figure it out.
Right.
But,
Hanging chat.
but it is secure.
Is it a criminal matter?
We let people know. I suspect if anyone's going to pursue it, it's the banks where the checks were presented, where they actually did
Get them.
distribute funds.
But because they're insured, we're not on the hook.
We're not on the hook because it was clearly
Yeah.
the bank's fault for
Yeah.
letting this
Yeah.
stuff go through.
Okay.
Okay, so I will send that out and it'll be on my agenda again for next month. What I did just send out to you an hour before the meeting, and I will pass these around. So Erin and Kat, you should have them by email. You can have one. I'll just send it around. Folks can take a copy if they are interested.
I have it in the email. Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
I don't. Do you have a hard copy? No. We're good. I'm like yawning. I apologize.
And I haven't even started
I
yet.
know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
You're gonna hurt
sorry.
Morgan's feelings there, Bob.
Sorry.
It's all part of my plan.
The numbers are fascinating, Morgan.
Fascinating.
That's all pretty fascinating. So I've been walking you through a similar slideshow at your local meetings, and so following generally the same format here. And again, tonight we will cover, we'll just go as far as staffing since that's the bulk of your budget. We are at our first board meeting. The yield proposal from the tax commissioner will drop on December 1st. That's the first number that really informs your local tax rates. Equalized pupils in theory will drop on December 15th. That's the second number that is relevant. And then we meet on December 21st, and the plan at this point is to finalize your budget at that point. We don't actually have to sign a warning for the budget for the SU. If we need to hold another meeting, we will probably do that the first week in January to try to get ahead of the NMV meeting, because we'd like to have the SU budget finalized before the two districts finalize their budgets, because the assessment is a big part of that. Budget objectives haven't changed. These are the 3 goals that you all set at your board retreat. And because we don't have an SU presentation to the public, this is all really just for your edification, and the two districts will be making a call on what they want to put out to their voters in these public meetings. Additional considerations are largely unchanged. I believe that the Act 173 change this year is going to put you about $300,000 to the good in terms of revenue. We don't have the final number on that, but that was kind of the initial look that I saw. The transportation contract bid request went out. That will be due back the day before your next SU meeting, so we will be able to put a real number, we hope, into that budget. It's going out to probably a dozen different vendors. I am confident we'll get at least one, maybe 2. I don't promise. And then the other big thing that's on there that we will talk about a little bit later in the meeting is the further development of the alternative programs. Michelle and I think will be tag teaming on tonight. Enrollment projections, again, just up there, no changes. On a district-wide level, relatively flat, which is good for the state compared to other districts. The expense considerations that we put up here, the health insurance premium did come in around 12.5%. Jamie and I got an email today about dental insurance premiums coming in somewhere in the 0 to 4% increase range. And then the multi-line insurance, which is the other insurance properties, legal liability, is about a 7% increase, which, used to feel like a big number, but
No, it's like, it's not 20.
doesn't really We talked a little bit in the past about the ESSER funding cliff, and I just want to kind of bring us around to that. Half of Vern's position is currently funded out of ESSER. All of Michelle's position is funded out of ESSER. The 3 instructional coaches who came tonight are funded out of ESSER. Gab's program is funded out of ESSER, and then we have home-to-school coordinators in all of the buildings. Some of them are shared, and they are all funded out of ESSER. So as we move through the next couple of years,
Not all of them.
not
but
all of them, some of them.
federal.
As we move through the next 2 years of budget development, we want to keep that in mind and realize that for those things that we want to continue doing, we're going to have to figure out a way to either pull them into the local budget, or pull them into the SU budget, or find other grant opportunities for them.
Do we know, I can't remember if I asked this before or not, do we know which ones could potentially fit into consolidated federal grant?
Clearly homeschool coordinators.
Right, and then
Instructional
instructional
coaches.
and then DEI coordinator?
Not so clear.
No, not so clear, that's it.
Strong maybe.
Okay,
That is a formula grant, so that's a limited pot of money.
right.
I don't know if the changes in the funding formula that we're trying to figure out now will have any impact on title money. I don't know if, we
Okay.
just don't know yet.
Okay,
But that is, it's a finite pie,
right,
as they say at this point.
and maybe not all, but could some, yeah,
It
big
could be-
question, big question mark,
Could be a
okay,
transitional step.
okay.
So in the document that I shared, I kind of wanted to just walk you through the staffing changes that we have proposed for this first draft. I am confident that we will tweak this before we bring it back to you in December. But this is, again, your opportunity to put the brakes on something that we're proposing, if there's, ESSER funding that you want to move a little bit faster, we can do that. Or if there are, complete curveballs of new programs that you want us to explore, this would be a great meeting to let us know that as well. And by your SU meeting in December, you'll have met at your local districts, each one more time. You won't have revenue yet, so you won't really have an idea of the tax rates, but you'll see a solid look at the spending plan. And so we can talk then about whether at the SU level you want to see more activity.
So can you translate some of this? So for
Yep,
instance, like.
I'll actually walk you right
Oh,
through.
you are? Okay.
So,
Thank you.
the teacher mentoring piece, that 0.2 FTE was the position that Sharon Wright has held for a few years, mentoring our new teachers. She retired, and then we hired her back into school because nobody ever really retires around here. But that mentoring piece is now covered by the
Right.
3 folks that you heard from today. So I think we backfilled it in a very strong, more robust way, but that 0.2 is coming out of your general fund budget. For this next one, I'm going to need some jargon help, but Leah Belitzos has been the district-wide special ed evaluator for probably 4 or 5 years. With the changes in Act 173,
Requirement of SU EST coordinator, she's become our EST coordinator.
so that's not
she's-
special ed directly, and so it's
There's a
the same
requirement that you have
person.
an EST coordinator?
This
There's
EST
a requirement
coordination
for
happen
coordination
Oh,
at the
coordination.
SU level.
That's
Yeah.
not
SU
coordinator, okay. I was like, I was about ready
We
to be
need a
like,
coordinator.
what? Okay. That was different, okay.
So we are sort of transitioning her from her role last year to take on this ESC coordination, and that's really more of a general fund fit rather than a special education fit. There's an overall increase of 0.1 this year in terms of the Jody, Mary Ellis, Jennifer Kennison position, and that's one that we kind of tweak every year between those 3. 1 to fit the requirements and 2 to fit the budget of CFP. So no new people there, it's just sort of rearranging the chairs a little bit. Similarly, we are proposing a 0.5 FTE shift of Robin's time. She is the assistant sped director. She is being consumed by Title IX investigations, which is I think it's a federal change, is that right? So not something we've done to ourselves as a state.
I would shift investigation to coordination.
Coordination.
Just so that doesn't get confusing.
So Title IX, and I put Title IX work because that's
Yeah.
You just
not the
put
extent of
9,
my
that's
knowledge.
okay.
So again, the same position, moving half of it out of special ed into the general fund budget. And I think this is an area to kind of tip you coming down the road that if something doesn't change,
You would
we
need
may
a
end
number
up
1.
seeing 2 positions rather than one that's split.
Right.
1.0 one way and 1.0 the other way. We are proposing moving the other half of Vern out of ESSER next year into your general fund budget. He's currently 50/50 ESSER general fund this year. It feels like a good and defensible fit because so much of the work is around, initial work in schools has been around HVAC, which is a direct response to COVID. I think as he transitions more into that the facilities director role as we envision it long-term, it makes sense maybe this year to pull him in.
As I think he just dashed off to go fix a boiler somewhere.
Okay.
That's why he disappeared.
He's not easily offended, so I didn't think it was.
Nope.
Increasing Melissa from 0.8 to 1.0. That was initially envisioned as a 1.0 position, and we had to beg, borrow, and steal for the time that we could get out of Melissa. But that that's envisioned as a 1.0 position next year. In the special ed section, the increases get a little wonky because you as a board are approving a general fund budget. The funding for something like CFP is pretty easy to put off in its own bucket. Say, you know, we're going to submit a grant proposal on that. Those positions are sort of off the general fund budget. The special ed funding is a little bit different because we have more streams coming in, and you know, for example, with the Idea B budget, historically we've put a lot of our speech pathologists in there. We know if that grant doesn't come through, we're going to move them back to the general fund.
Right.
If that grant comes through with a bigger dollar amount, we may be able to push some people out of the general fund into that.
Okay.
So I'm kind of I'm trying to this year pull those grant positions in when I talk about where the increases are. Early ed, special ed, we have always had somewhere in the budget between 2 and 2.5 positions. Historically, they've been parts of people that we've asked to go get that additional endorsement and provide that service in their schools. We are actually now at the point where we have 3 people who are dedicated to that, and so the budget is catching up to that. It's probably a 1.0 increase. It may only be about a half-time increase. And in terms of your general fund budget, you will probably only be funding about half to 3/4 because we're able to put the rest of that in the IDEA grant as well as the AAA grant that we get.
Okay. Having that additional early ed special educator is helping because they are K-6 certified, so they're taking on kindergarten in some of our schools, which is reducing caseloads for, like, Bakersfield has 1 special educator, so this is really helping the special educator there by having this early ed person, so good. Saving the adding some hands.
So similar things going on with the K-12 special ed, but at a much greater degree. So trying to pull those people that we had in grants and kind of count them in the general fund, at least for you, so you know what's going on in the program. This looks like a huge increase. Michelle's probably surprised because we didn't get to pregame this meeting. Of that 22.35 FTE, 31 of those are paraeducators. So in terms of your professional staff, I think we're actually been seeing a decrease. In terms of your licensed staff, we're seeing a decrease. So now we're going into this budget with 1 less speech pathologist, with probably 1 less special ed teacher, but that's masked by this move of the paraeducators to the district level.
Gotcha.
Of that, 12 are paraeducators who really were in the local budget until this year because they have that higher certification. We're bringing them into the SU, but they were local expenses last year. The rest of those are paraeducators in Michelle's program. Those are the ones that we are hopefully able to see a decrease in the tuition payments going out to other districts, which I think we are seeing, as well as a decrease in some of the positions that we are contracting from NCSS. So we are
First, when you
seeing,
said a decrease in tuition, okay, got it.
so a
Yep.
program like a SOAR or
Yep.
Lateral Way.
Yeah.
And as I think you've heard in the local meetings as well as this meeting, NCSS is having trouble finding people. Those programs are having trouble finding people, and so they are not accepting
Right.
kids as quickly
Or
as.
they're discharging.
Do we know what the cost savings has been by having those programs versus what we pay for contracts?
I don't think we have a specific dollar amount.
No.
I mean, we can kind of talk about it on a
Like a,
per kid ratio.
gotcha.
I mean, those programs can be upwards of
No, I know.
So
100,000.
like it was $155,000 for a student who was just at an alternative school
Right.
at Mosaic, and then it was another $58,000 for transportation for the year for
Right.
that one student. So I would say it's pretty big savings for
Right.
for just
Yeah.
one student by putting them in.
Paid back into our school. Okay.
I think it,
I don't know, like
I think
staffing.
once we're up and running with these programs, we can give you a per pupil cost. And then we'll be able to say, you know, if it costs X for us to keep this kid here, it would cost Y for us to send this kid to another program, and then talk about the kind of different benefits of each.
I do have a couple non-special ed students too that are
Mhm.
in the at the trailhouse.
I think that's gonna be easier to do than to look back 3 years and say we spend X dollars on tuition this
Right,
year,
but it could be,
because that population changes so much.
Right.
But I think we can get to it by a per kid
Right.
cost.
Right, okay.
So that's the big delta with special ed, is the movement of those paraeducators. I mean, I've talked to you about it on the local board level as well.
Okay.
And then in the food service program, it's a slight decrease to FTEs. I think that's primarily because Dawn has several staff who are not full-time. They may come in for 3 days a week, and then somebody else comes in for 2 days a week, or they come in for, you know, the 4 hours of crunch time but aren't there the full day. And so I would anticipate, as we go through that program becoming more mature year to year, you're gonna see this number go up a fraction or down a fraction each year as we kind of change who's in the buildings.
Okay.
So that is staffing here. Again, we're gonna talk about the alternative programs a little bit later. Are there any questions on that or any course corrections? We can approach some of the ESSER changes at our next meeting when we have some solid dollar amounts. When transportation came in more or less, does that give us an opportunity to start bringing in some of Michelle Irish into the local budget? That's a goal.
Right.
But I don't know that we need to have that discussion now. What would be good is if you say, you know, we love what you're doing with coaching, we want one for every building. Because we're gonna have to find that money. So if there's, you know, something big like that, it would be good to have that heads up now.
I mean, certainly maintaining the coaching situation we have now seems absolutely warranted, including the one we have embedded at Berkshire. I mean, that's more the NMB budget, I suppose.
At this point, yeah.
Right. I mean, and everything you outlined there seems like pretty prudent and necessary. None of it seems extraneous and unneeded at all. And, you know, just as we try to kind of make that transition with some of those, as the ESSER funds kind of expire, I think if we can do it gradually, as we start pulling in some of those positions, then hopefully we offset some of the impact. We can spread the impact out over a handful of budget cycles, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and we're spreading it out over the same budget cycles where we are seeing increased tax capacity because of Act 173
Right.
and Act 127.
I mean, and I think some of the bigger hit by far is not gonna be those handful of positions. It's gonna be the 12% increase in health insurance and the upwards of 4% in dental insurance. And so like when we are working with those harsh kind of realities, I think we just have to be thoughtful then about how we stagger integrating some of these ESSER funded positions back into the either the SU budget or the local budget, so that we can, you know, we have transportation costs increasing too. So seems like we can do it all, we just can't do it maybe all at the same time.
We're not getting rid of any of the open positions currently, right? Like the ones that that are on the books but not filled. Are those still gonna be in our budget?
I would say yes, most of that is district level stuff. We
Oh,
are
okay.
we're down 2 speech pathologists
Right.
right now.
Uh,
We are proposing
I
being
think
down 1.
3, we have 3
Mhm.
open
3, okay.
SLPs.
So I'm giving up on one of those for next year.
Why, just because you don't think
Maybe
you'll
that's
fill
not the
them,
right word.
or why? You don't need them?
Oh. No, I think we need them, so to speak. I think we're trying to use a consultation model and work with our EST teams, having them invite the SLP in to do more whole group because it's a lot of language for the entire class that is necessary. That's what we're seeing.
Right.
So using like a different model.
Gotcha.
And hopeful that might change, but
Right.
hoping that we can make some progress that way, doing more whole group.
Gotcha.
But I also don't think I'm gonna find bigger.
Okay, that's why I was like, is it that or is it this? Is it that?
It's a little of both.
It's a little
because
both,
It's a little
trying to
both.
think about some different models.
The budget should be both aspirational and reality based.
Right. Okay. Alright.
So other than just kind of the board reflecting back that we're okay moving forward with those in mind, we're not gonna really have hard numbers until
Correct.
December.
Correct.
Yeah,
And in terms of the non-people stuff, I talked about health insurance and the other insurances. Dominic and I had a brief conversation, and I don't anticipate skyrocketing tech needs. We'll be catching up a little bit with the new office space and budgeting for that. But we did have some of that in this year's budget. So I don't anticipate any big swings in terms of this stuff.
okay. Okay, sounds good. Anything else, Morgan?
That's it, unless you have questions.
All right, so that brings us to the superintendent report. As folks know, Lynn was unable to join us this evening, so I'm gonna tag team with Michelle Irish and we'll share kind of the highlights of Lynn's report. So there is, under personnel, there are some hiring, one action item. It looks as though for FNESU, we've got Philip Cook being hired as a behavioral specialist. So I'm assuming Lynn
Yeah,
wants us, and I was unclear, currently a BT para?
Behavior technician.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you for clarifying that. All right, so, I will make that motion to hire Philip Cook as a behavioral specialist. We'll do that by roll. Kat?
Will he move around? Is that the plan?
It's so Lindsay, the BCBA, can move around more because we only have 2, and so he's in the coursework to, he'll have his BCBA by the end of next year. So he's staying at the trail house so that she can hit some more schools.
Yeah, great. By roll, Kat?
Aye.
Erin?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Polly?
Aye.
And Mary is an aye. We have a couple of resignations. Shelley Stetson, who was in the SU, a behavioral tech para, and Ashley LaFaux, also a behavioral tech para. That's just informational. And then I'll do, as Lynn often, usually does, I'm just gonna go through our open positions in case anyone is listening or watching the meeting and knows someone who might like to apply for one of these positions. We have, the 3 SL speech and language pathologists, but 2 we would take, it sounds like. MS reading specialist, literacy interventionist,
positions, math interventionists, occupational therapist assistant, therapeutic social worker, school psychologist, a social emotional learning coordinator, a .5 FTE family engagement coordinator for Richford High School, kitchen assistant, and substitutes. We need substitute teachers, nurses, paras, custodians, and food service people. So there's nothing under students at this time. And then we do have, Lynn talked with me a little in our pre-meet about a change to the 2023-24 school calendar. It's a kind of a concept that's percolating currently. Do you want to talk about it?
I can try, and I think Jody and Michelle can help jump in
Okay.
as well. So we have, and Jody, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the academy model and sort of the struggles that we've encountered this year.
Yeah, so for years, we've been able to pull teachers, get sub-coverage for them that we paid for with CFP money, and then bring them together in their content or grade level groups to do professional learning a couple times a year. Because of the staffing challenges that we've had, we haven't had that model work for probably the 2018-19 year was the last full year of it. And it, you know, just has kind of gotten less and less reliable. But there's still a need for professional learning.
A huge need.
Yes, a huge need for professional
There's
learning.
a lot that's changing right now with all of the changes to Act 173, our MTSS system, trying to work on universal design for learning, working toward portrait of a learner. All of these things take a tremendous amount of shift, as Polly probably knows, in your instructional practice. And so being able to have that time to do that learning is so critical for teachers, and they just don't have it right now. Even our in-service days are kind of being hodgepodge together to pull some of that time, but it's not enough to really do the work that we need them to do. So one of the things that's happening kind of around the state, and I think Lynn makes a point here that she has a model that she wants to present. She didn't share that before she had to leave, but we were literally 5 minutes before this meeting started. So I think what she's looking for is like maybe a 1 hour delay each week. A lot of schools are doing this where Wednesday happens to be one of the days that some schools are doing, where you have a delayed start for students. Teachers still start at their normal time, and it gives them some extra time for some professional learning before the student day starts. I think one of the reasons for the 1 hour delay versus the end of school is it can be so hard to shift from the busyness of the school day into that after school. Teachers are tired by the end of the day. We're not getting their best work. So giving them that time in the morning is a little more predictable. We also know that, you know, students also do better sometimes if they're not coming in as early. So there's some research around that to support a later start, especially for high school students. But I don't have the full scope of the model that she was looking to present, but I think what she's looking for tonight is sort of concept approval so that we can continue to move forward and think about how this would affect our calendar and be ready to propose something in the spring.
So my school, we have 2 days, two, we'll call them collaboration mornings.
A month or a week?
A week.
A week.
And it's to do exactly this, like to work on like assessment alignment and all of it. So the only thing that would, I know elementary schools and other districts have put it at the end of the day because of, you know, you can't just leave your little kid at home to catch the bus by themselves, right?
Right.
So I guess if we were doing that for the elementary school, that we would just think of families and getting kids to school on that day. And,
I think we also talked about collaborating with Heather, if she talked to you at all about collaborating with LEAPs and looking at those.
right, like
you know,
that kind of.
that kind of alternative that we currently use
Right.
for our early release days. We would still have our para educators coming at the normal time, and they would be able to do some support for the students who needed to
I was
be
gonna
there.
say, we've even worked in some kind of like student tutorial, like little study sessions around for different kids, or groups of kids rather.
I know it's something she's it's on her
Yeah.
mind about planning
So that
for.
would be my only.
Yeah.
it's just to think about that piece, but I'm sure you have. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Polly or anyone, how does that impact, even if it's just an hour a week, how does that impact like the schedule? Because I know there's like, you know, certain requirements that they have to have so many minutes of XYZ. So where does that extra hour, you know, like, does that have to get made up somewhere?
Nope.
In some way?
No. At my school, we have block scheduling on those days, so we have, I know normally if you have a late start, you just would adjust the schedule by that many minutes.
Right, you should shorten the blocks on those days or something.
Well, so we have, it's a weird, so
Yeah.
we only have blocks on 2 days, the 2 late days. And then we have 7 periods, Monday, Thursday, and Friday. So it's a little confusing. So there's less classes that meet on those late days. But if you just had a regular 6-period day, which you folks have, and you just started later, you'd probably just shrink every class to adjust.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we already offer more than the minimum required number of
Yeah.
hours per week, so that's not a problem, Kat, in the logistics of it. It's not about meeting minimum requirements, it's more about how do we fit everything in.
So, and I think that all Lynn wanted to do tonight was really just get the board kind of understanding the concept, the intention behind the suggestion, and there are gonna be a lot of intricacies to work out, obviously, as far as students and the morning and transportation and LEAP's involvement and all of that, but she said we'll flush it out when she presents the 23-24 calendar.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, the whole concept around education now is about being data driven. Well, you can't drive with data if you're not looking at the data.
And needs-based professional learning.
Right,
And that's
exactly, in
a
order
huge
to
piece right
respond to the data.
Exactly.
Data. So yeah, it makes sense.
Great, okay. So she was gonna give a brief update on the progress with the childcare and special program spaces. I don't know if anyone else on the team is able to do that today, or we'll just punt that till December.
No, I think we should do some of that tonight.
Okay,
So we had a meeting today actually and discussed both of those. I will do the childcare first because that's less detailed at this point. There are groups in the area that we're talking with who are very interested in expanding childcare in the area. It's maybe a little bit different model than what we're envisioning, which is really more something that is designed to support our teaching staff. So we're kind of kicking around some ideas on locations. These other folks are kicking around some ideas on locations. I expect that in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we will probably be part of a larger community meeting to start talking about it generally, and we'll see. I think it's something that we will try to figure out a way to support because any additional slots will help, but it may be something where we're helping them and we are also pursuing this other model, which is a little more internally focused. So stay tuned on that. In terms of the special program space, we've had similar discussions around that, and I think we are getting to the point where we could come up with an RFP for space. There are no spaces out there that exist, but there are some folks that we know who would be willing to retrofit a space and lease it to us. And there may be folks that we don't know who are out there who would be willing to do that. And so that's something that I think we are ready to start moving on. We don't know that we would be getting ready to have an RFP out before your next meeting, but we just wanted to do it would check in with the board to see if that's still a green light on doing that before we put in the work.
And what was, because remember we were batting around like what it would look like who are we thinking would go into this space?
Trail house and steps, the behavioral.
Oh, the behavioral, right, okay, yep, okay. Right,
Oh, in one space.
one space.
Yep, like ideally, like one building, and then I want like two separate spaces with a door in between, so like
Right.
middle high school on this side, elementary on this side, so then the staff can go between and support each other and, but yep, I'm looking for something that is like 2 safe spaces, a sensory room, some individual workspaces for kids who can't, that need individualized, and then some group workspaces. Like 1,200 square feet on this side and 1,200 square feet on that side would be my dream ideal.
So what space are you thinking about?
We probably shouldn't
Say,
tip anything in open meeting
Right.
because it is going to be a bid process.
right,
We certainly don't want to discourage anyone who's out there who might have a spot. It'll probably be, that's the smallest amount of square footage that I've heard Michelle say is ideal, so we'll probably put out a range.
3,000-ish would be the
25
best.
to 4,000.
But I'm pretty desperate, I'll take the rest. But,
Yep.
So there's options.
Well, it's great that there are options, and I don't think it's optional to sit on it.
Okay.
So we should move forward, I think. I mean,
Yes.
we know the climate out there is not supportive of out-of-district placements. We know we have a tremendous need for improved facilities for this, for these programs. So I don't see us being able to just kind of slow roll this or kind of make do with what we have because it's not meeting the need. So we should absolutely move forward.
And in this case, the timing is nice with Act 173,
Right.
since that's coming a year before.
And we've got a structure in place that's working, so
Right.
being able to expand that and play on it can be better.
And remind me, did we talk about how the potential exists that if we have a space and of these programs that we could potentially pull in from kids from other districts who are in the same position as we are with the lack of out-of-district placements, and then become a place where we would have people to potentially tuitioning in some of their students.
I've got people ask that. In different space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, obviously
Yeah.
the space can't support that now,
Maybe go
but the
bigger.
space could
You need bigger
potentially.
space
Bigger space.
then. In staff.
Space and staff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say,
I
don't
do
forget you
have-
gotta fill
I
a
am
building.
pretty
Yeah.
lucky so
Yeah.
far, like I feel like we have just the right staff right now in both of the programs. Like we need just the right people that can do this work, and I feel like I'm in a pretty good.
Yeah.
But would you'd have to increase staff or not? You would have to, right?
If you had more students, you
Well,
have
it depends.
some more staff.
Depends on how we structure it, and like I'm really working on more, just tweak the schedule, which I'm going into a little bit of mine, but like the one problem that we're finding, sending students back to their setting schools is that they're struggling with stamina because it's so individualized here, and then I'm like putting them back into
Yeah.
like, now you have 90 minutes of language arts. And the
Exactly.
kids are like, ah. So I'm working to get it more schooly in that they have groups and stations and working on when they feel wronged by other students. This seems to be a big issue in the trail house, is when they feel wronged, then that's when all these behaviors happen. So working in more small groups to practice those skills more, so I
Do-
need help.
Is there any, do they have like flexible schedule where like, or a transitional schedule where they do part-time at trail and then
Yep,
part-time?
that's what we're doing now,
Or-
a couple
Yeah.
hours,
Yeah.
2 hours, and we're increasing it to
Yeah.
2.5. And,
Nice.
yeah.
Good.
With varying levels of success.
Right. Okay, cool.
Great. Anything else on that, Morgan?
Nope, that's it for now.
All right.
And we will move forward.
Great. So Lynn wanted to share the values protocol piece. They did, were you a part of
Some
this,
of them.
Michelle?
Some of them, yeah. So we've done a lot of work around our board goals, our mission, our vision, working on our equity statement. I think Lynn and I have talked about the fact that one of the pieces I feel like we have that's missing is really a collection of shared values or core values that are really kind of come from our whole community and all of our stakeholders. So we've done a little bit of work so far. I think Lynn has up here the FNESU administrators in 2021. I think that was before my time, or maybe just before. We did a little bit of work. I think this was my first day, actually. Did a little work around what are our values about education. So that's the first word, cloud. And this was just like we all answered the same question, and then the word clouds pull in the most common words, and the ones closer to the center were the most, the ones that were used the most frequently, and then they get smaller and farther out from the center. And then we did this fall at convocation. We did when it says FNESU Educators 2022, the question was, I think, I don't remember the question now, but it was something around what values do you see in your work or something like that. So these were the values that came up.
I know, because that's the question I had, is what was the
I
question?
know,
they
I'm
were
trying to
answering?
remember. I think I might have written it. I will find it
Okay.
for you and share it. And then this similar question was with our new teachers this year. So this was the new teacher orientation one actually happened first, and then we did it with the whole SU. And you can see if you toggle back and forth, there's a lot of similarity, which I think is nice that we are coming together now with a lot of the same words. I think there's a couple of stakeholder groups we haven't asked about the values, and one of them is students, and one of them is community members and parents, caregivers. So I think that's an area that we still need to pursue. Mary, did Lynn talk to you about a method for that?
Not really,
Okay.
not yet. I mean, we talked a little bit about, also one thing that I like the idea of was pulling in the student, since we've been so focused on student voice, to pull in the students to kind of collaborate with and share their, do similar exercises with them. And certainly we can do something similar at the board level too.
Agreed. So I think we have the beginning of a plan to do a survey of some sort with students, and there's a couple of things that are coming up. So we've got the student voice work we've been doing, and also I think we're going to get some of this, and I'm kind of waiting for the equity audit to be published so that we can see what we will learn from that, because I think we had hundreds of students responded to that equity audit survey that went out in the spring. So there's a lot of information there that I'm excited to kind of see what they come up with. So I think once we get that, then we'll design something for this year that we can send out to students to kind of make sure we've got all our bases covered around sort of the values of this our organization, our community. And we can do the same with the board. And I think the equity audit may also get some similar information from parent or caregiver stakeholders. We had, again, quite a good response to the surveys for those. So I think we'll see where we land after that comes out. We should have that in December.
Great.
So.
All right. So, we have all central office employees and GAB coming up on negotiations. I mean, and I think Lynn just wanted some guidance from the board as to how we want to handle that. We kind of had transitioned from a time when the board used to negotiate with everyone. That was many, many years ago, to Lynn doing the negotiations because she's so front and center with everyone, and has a lot more insight into just the nuances of each person's work and so on and so forth. So my suggestion is that we just task Lynn with doing the negotiations, but what we've done in the past is then after she comes and presents, you know, in an executive session, of course, then the board would have input on some of the negotiations, and then she will finish it up after sharing with the board how the process is going. So that's how we did it the last cycle with the central office. So I think it seemed to work well. For the board at least, I mean, and I think it is a heavy lift for Lynn, but she said she is fine continuing with that, that practice.
Okay.
Does that sound okay to everyone on the board? Okay, great. And then the last thing is the PCB testing, which Morgan, I don't believe we have any updates. Lynn's gonna put it in each time because it's definitely it's all on the horizon, but talk about a slow roll.
Yeah, Richford Elementary is was the first school to be tested. Those results should have been back a couple weeks ago at this point, and they're not. Enosburg Elementary is getting tested over Thanksgiving. Berkshire and Sheldon are also in the immediate queue.
Okay. So to be continued. All right, so that is it. Lynn. And that brings us to our central office updates, and Dominic, as always, you're up first.
Okay. So, well, thankfully, I have a little bit of an update on the first bullet point there. We actually do have real internet at our new office now. We're not living on hotspots anymore. So as of right near the end of last week, we got our fiber installed.
Nice.
It's up and running. Zoom phone, we're transitioned to that, and I think it seems to be working pretty well for most people. We've got a little bit of a mix. Some people are using more traditional style phones. Other people are either using the app on their own cell phone or just an app on their computer. And we've got people, headphones, built-in microphones for the ones that want to go the computer route.
Nice.
And then I gave just kind of an update on where we are so far this year with our E-rate refunds. I think everyone on the board has been here long enough to know about E-rate and what it is. But for other people who might be watching, it's a federal program that helps schools get some money back on what we spend on internet-related expenses. So we can get money back on both the internet service that we pay for itself, as well as equipment that we need to be able to distribute the internet access throughout our schools. And the percentage we get back is based on free reduced lunch rates or direct cert rates for us, for a lot of ours now. And we come in pretty high. The money we've gotten back so far this year was based on our eligibility last year, which was 80% for Enosburg Richford and 70% for NMB. For current year, we actually got 80% on both. And so far this year, we've got back just a hair under 40,000 for what we spent on internet access for all of our other schools, for all of our schools and our central office as well. And anticipating a little more money coming back in the near future, next month or so, for some of the hardware that we bought over the summer too.
Great, thank you so much. So Jody, do you have anything further that you'd like to? I mean, you did a big highlight today.
I don't have
Okay,
anything further,
perfect,
no.
of
I
course.
did just want to make the point, I put it in my notes, but to say it to you as well. The early literacy, the kindergarten data that I shared is not a complete data set.
Yeah.
The deadline isn't until December 9th because those are interview style assessments, so the teacher sits with the student and interviews them, so they're pretty time consuming.
Okay.
So we will have the full data set for next month. But
Perfect.
I just wanted you to see what kind of data we are getting
Great.
from those.
Great, thank you so
Yep.
much. So that brings us to Michelle Tverish.
So every month, Michelle, Irish, Jody, Lynn, and I go and visit principals. And this month, the one thing I want to highlight is this month I talked to all of the leaders about our movement with special educators and how they need to have a good understanding of the disability categories and the impact and uniqueness of the learner so that they can help gen ed teachers eliminate the barrier so kids can access education. So really long. So what I asked leaders to do with their teachers is to think about, to start off by thinking with universally designing lessons, 3 disability categories. Because if we could think about these 3 categories, we would hit a large population of students in the classroom. One of them is a category called other health impairment, and that is for kids, typically for kids who have ADHD, and they struggle with stamina. So when a teacher is designing lessons, how can they plan for the student who cannot sit for long periods of time, so you're not gonna get up there and talk for like 18 minutes. And then the other disability category was a specific learning disability, and it talked about how students of specific learning disabilities have struggles with memory and processing. So when they're planning their lessons, how can they account for kids who struggle with memory? And then the last one, which is a big one in a lot of our classes, is self-regulation and emotional disturbance, and how can they plan for a student who really struggles with self-regulation. So that was my focus for this month, mostly with leaders.
Great. Thank you so much. Heather, more?
So just kind of, we started Q2 on Monday. So I shared in your board packets the brochures for each of the programs, so you can kind of get a glimpse of what we're doing. Some exciting activities like carpentry, robotics. We're going to have a theater program both at Enosburg Falls Middle High School and Ridgeford Junior Senior High, so we're able to move forward with both of those. And one of our programs that we're doing in partnership with Vermont After School called Linking Engineering to Life, which is designed to help primarily focused on eliminating barriers for youth that are generally female and non-binary in the STEM fields, like breakthroughs from that. So they're working with 3 mentors from UVM who actually leads from STEM classes, and they're going to be going to Beta Technologies in a couple of weeks, which is a woman-owned company, and they'll be doing a tour of that. And just like a little switch that we're doing, 3 of our sites were offering a meal, but we've been seeing over several years a huge amount of food waste. Students didn't want the full meal. They were throwing most of the food away. Students would say, I just want the fruit, but we couldn't offer them the fruit because of regulations. You had to give them the whole components. And so we're doing a temporary, I'm working with Don, we're doing a temporary shift to the snack program, which is what we have in our other 5 sites that has a much higher participation rate, so more students are eating, and they're not throwing food away. So we're trying it for this session. We're going to see how it goes. We've opened it up to families and students for feedback, and we'll see what we end up doing for the rest of the year.
Nice. Great. Thank you so much. Jamie?
Okay, so as you could see from my board notes, we've hired 6 additional support staff members, so that was good in the last month. We've got 6 more people working, although we had a few resignations last week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, from perspective of board.
They haven't made the notes yet. So yeah, it's every time we hire a few, we lose a few. So, we have 3 additional requests for leave since the last meeting. And I also wanted to go over from the last meeting when we did Lynn and I presented the retention strategies, and I went over the licensing piece. You wanted some clarification of the temporary licenses. So out of the 72 temporary licenses, this school year. 16 emergencies are brand new to the field, and 29 of the provisionals are also brand new teachers, which left 27 teachers that are seasoned teachers who may have added an endorsement or changed a teacher assignment. So, yes, it's still quite a large number of new people. Yeah. So I requested 2 additional provisional licenses since the last meeting. I think that's basically it. Next, I'm trying to get out, I think by Monday, the new open enrollment paperwork. So everyone will have till the end of December to get in any changes for the new year.
Great, thank you so much. Dawn?
So since our last meeting, the health inspectors finished up their inspections in all of our kitchens. We've hit 95 or above in all of the schools, which is great. This week has been a really busy week in the world of food service because we've rolled out our holiday meals in every one of our schools, today being the first day where we had the holiday meals that were in Enosburg Elementary, Enosburg High School, and Montgomery, where parents could come and have a Thanksgiving meal with their kids. Tomorrow we're doing Richford High School, Bakersfield, Berkshire, and Sheldon. And then on Friday, Richford Elementary is doing theirs. So that's been a huge task on our staff. Turkeys have been extremely hard to come by, but we were able to get enough for all of our schools to have turkey, which down to yesterday we were questioning whether that was going to happen, but it did. So that was a good thing. And other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Thanks, Dawn. Melissa Wood?
One of the things I wanted to highlight this month was the universal screener that we use for social emotional development, and that's called the EDECA. E just stands for electronic. DECA is Devereaux Early Childhood Assessments, and the thing that I really like about this is that it's proactive. So you're looking at protective factors, which are initiative, attachment and relationships, and self-control. And based on an individual child's strengths or challenges in that area, the tool then also provides strategies to help support those areas, in that if children have more resiliency, if their protective factors are stronger, then when they come across challenges in their lives, they can fall back on their protective factors. And the teachers can also use it to look at individual children, but also their classroom profile. So if they see 5 out of their 13 children are having some challenges in attachment and relationships, they'll go in and look at strategies and implement strategies classroom-wide that will address that. And then if there are children who need more, then they can support them that way. So it's a really great universal tool that supports everybody and can be used to support individual students.
Awesome, that's great. Thank you so much. Robin?
So October, schools completed their egress drill. They're doing the same thing for the month of November. And earlier this month, I attended the Governor's School Safety Conference in Burlington, which was free, so that was nice. It gave me an opportunity to collaborate with some other educators and law enforcement partners from across the state. And it was nice to be able to reflect on the work that we're doing here and that many of our schools are doing. And I left feeling like we were in a good space, but I also left with some areas that I feel that we can improve upon, and was able to really, there was a couple of supervisory unions there that are doing some things well that I feel I could bring back, and I have folks to reach out to when we do that work, hopefully in the coming months. So it was nice to see other schools and supervisory unions get highlighted and be able to hopefully just pick up the phone and say, hey, can you share these templates so that, you know, because some of our schools are working on improving their emergency operation plans, and our schools are in various places with that. And some places are doing it well, so it's good to be able to be, say, hey, can you share this template, and give our schools some models to kind of look at, and maybe borrow or steal some of their ideas that work. So that was exciting. That was a little shift in my world to be able to do something like this.
Nice, that's great. Thanks so much. Gab?
We are up 4 high school and down 3 and up 4 K-6. So kind of the same as hiring, like we're high school's like 1 a week. It's getting like, it's a lot of students.
Do you have a cab or no?
Do it.
Have a cap, no.
I don't know, I mean,
Oh, right, you
that's
haven't had to.
that's a good question. Should we have a cap? The advising is going to, it is going to become an issue. It's a lot of time. So that's happening. North Country Animal League, I just mentioned that project in the notes. We are going on that field trip tomorrow, so the kids are going down to North Country Animal League to get to know the animals so they can try to adopt them.
I was gonna say, are you gonna bring some back?
Yeah. No, they're creating marketing materials to get the pets adopted. Hopefully we don't end up with them. I'm sure their parents are not hoping for that. And then something that's just incidental that kind of happened this month that I'll share that's building a little bit is, we've been using Portrait of a Learner in FPA all year and really focusing on that idea of like learner independence and expert learner and building that sort of confidence around learning. And I've been working with the STEPS program to kind of tease out what that looks like in advisory and get it on paper, which was really helpful. So it was kind of like in little pieces here and there, and I think it's getting articulated a little bit better. So we were doing a lot of things that weren't, articulated. So if something happened to me or Casey, it would have just gone to the wind. So we're starting to articulate that stuff a little bit better, which is exciting. And I just think it's such a key component of that shift to Portrait of a Learner. It's something that our kids really are not coming up with those independent learning skills. So hoping we can streamline that and maybe make it accessible to other people. So that's, I don't have anything.
Great, thanks, Gab, appreciate it. And it looks like Vern had to dash to deal with the boiler situation, but maybe for the benefit of our virtual audience and people who may watch the recording, I'll just read his report. So he says he's met with all NMB schools to go over projects for the summer of 2023. He's toured 4 schools with an electrical contractor to get an idea on the cost to install energy efficient LED lighting. This will have to be completed over multiple phases as the cost to replace entire schools will be costly. We have secured a grant for a new wood chip boiler for Richford High School. He's in the process of looking for buyers for the old plant that has to be ripped out. I've put the existing boiler on lumberman.com. It's hard to read that with this. And Craigslist. Who knew?
Lumberman.com. I am not looking that up on school. I'm not doing
It's so
that.
tempting.
I wasn't helping him with that, and it was really funny. Sure, that's
All right. He says, we did secure an air quality grant for Montgomery School. He's in the process of finishing up quotes for the work to be completed. He has a boiler down in Sheldon, so this
Sure
must
does.
be the emergency. He's currently waiting on a gasket to replace a worn one that is leaking. Should have it back online by the end of next week.
Not sure that's.
Well, as usual,
I was looking at some
we
plans, they did look
appreciate
pretty.
all his diligence keeping our buildings
Absolutely.
running well, so.
He
thank
is
you.
a resourceful man.
Yes.
Mary, just before we break up, I found those 2 questions for the core values questions.
Yeah.
So the question for convocation, which was the first, well, I think it was the second slide you saw, which was what values are most important to you as you engage in this work? And so that was our big convocation opening about planting seeds and being marigolds for each other and kind of supporting students and students at the core.
Okay.
And then the other question was from new teacher orientation. And it was what list the key characteristics of a teacher who had an impact on you as a learner. So different questions coming at it from different ways. Like one was from your experience and one was kind of as a teacher. And they both created very similar wordles, which I think was, or whatever, whatever those
Word
are called.
clouds.
Word clouds. Wordle's a game I play in the morning.
Me too. I got it in 3 today.
So I just thought that was interesting, and I can't remember the question from when we did at leadership in 2021. It was a thought exchange, so I don't have access to that question. You don't remember, do you? Either of you? Okay. So probably similar.
Yeah.
What is important about education or something like that.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, so, okay, without Lynn here, I'm not sure about in what capacity I can discuss the arbitration situation.
So I think in public session, we can say that you had an issue that was brought to you in October, and that issue will be heading to arbitration.
Okay.
And we will update you on times for that.
Okay.
And as far as I know, an arbiter has not been selected.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. I just wanted to let everyone know that Michelle and I wrote the anti-racism mini grant that the VSBA is offering, and we were awarded the grant. I'll read a little snippet from the letter from Sandra. Congratulations on your application being selected for a $5,000 equity mini grant. The mini grant program is a collaboration between the VSBA, the Vermont Superintendents Association, and the Vermont Principals Association. The funding was made possible by the Barr Foundation and the Vermont Community Foundation as part of their efforts to ensure welcoming, equitable, and anti-racist communities. The 2022 school board mini grant program had 19 applications, and so we were one of 6 SUs that was selected for the grant out of the 19. The applications were from around the state and demonstrated incredible interest and commitment to equity in our school communities. Selections were made in part to be representative of the various projects, stakeholders, and geographic areas of the state. While we are excited to be able to help fund the selected 6 projects, there is a clear commitment on the behalf of school communities to be innovative in localized equity projects, so that we hope that additional funding opportunities will be possible in the future as well.
Nice.
So we were very excited about that. It's going to be a great
And
opportunity.
then I started to panic.
You're like,
A lot of the work we proposed was around stakeholder engagement, around our strategic plan, so getting some feedback from stakeholders around strategic plan, as well as our portrait of a learner, and I can't remember the other thing, Mary, but off the top of my head. But and so the funds were really targeted for supporting childcare, so that we can get stakeholders there, support maybe feeding people to have a meal that will entice people to come in, and also potentially facilitation, so we can get professional facilitation.
So you don't have to do it through the lens of equity or anti-racism?
Well, so both the strategic plan and portrait of a learner are inherently about anti-racism and equity. The shift into portrait of a learner is is really an equity initiative. You know, it's talking about moving from, moving away from that sort of teacher-centered, teacher-directed, I'm gonna tell you what you need to know, to learner-directed, learner-centered exploration. So I think it's embedded in that work.
Interesting.
Doesn't mean we aren't gonna, or can't or won't embed some other things, but I think making those connections for people are gonna be important, as we had earlier.
Right.
The connection between equity and achievement is, I think, our next word.
Any thoughts about, like, we had talked about, with some diversity struggles that we've had in the past, regarding, stakeholder or community engagement on how to be part of the solution versus being part of the problem. Any thoughts on, like, community engagement with that?
I haven't had any, really,
Okay.
like, brainy things to think about, to come
Gotcha.
up with, but,
No, that's
yeah.
fine.
It's not off the table or anything, but I think
Yeah.
that what we really wanted was opportunities to engage our stakeholders in the work we're doing.
No, for sure.
And so I think equity fits that.
No, it does, for sure.
And if we give them something concrete to come in and talk about,
Right.
we can use the platform to have
Or
other
something
discussions.
else. Yeah, I was just thinking of the title of the grants, kind of like neon lights. but-
I think, I don't know, Mary,
Yeah.
if we kept we think we have a version we could probably share with the board.
Yeah, I have it
Yeah,
somewhere,
that's
and
fine.
I could
Yeah.
certainly forward, once I submitted it
Yeah.
online, it sent me a copy of the whole application.
Our application was not silent on the issues of equity and anti-racism at all.
Okay.
It was embedded in it.
Oh, okay.
But I think
Gotcha.
using the vehicles of some of the work we're doing to draw people in
Okay.
is gonna be important.
Okay.
So, great. So any, future agenda items? Oh, Morgan, I had a quick question. I saw your email with the financial management piece.
Yep.
Do you want us to address it now and just have that motion
I've got it on my
done?
agenda for next month.
It's all right?
It's all right.
Okay, doesn't feel
Give
pressing.
folks a time to look over it.
Okay, all right, cool. Okay, anything else? Sounds like you'll be bringing back some, more numbers for us for the December meeting for budgeting and stuff on the space. All right, sounds great. All right, so if there's nothing further, our next meeting is December 21st. Wow, that's wild. And I'll make a motion to adjourn 7:57. All in favor?
Aye.
Good?
So moved.
All right, good night, everyone. Thanks so much.